What's up guys? Welcome to AnimeKouhai. If you'd like to help me out, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel.
Araki Gensei and Minamoto Saburo served as their mentors, teaching them the evil-dispelling Oboro Shinmei Ryu sword style. These future fighters were being nurtured there, destined to form an international anti-Yoma organization. Until the long-awaited day arrived, their struggle continued.
Volume 17, Chapter 3. The Turbulent Days. Part 1.
My name is Calgurio. I used to be the big shot in charge of the Armored Corps, you know, the one everyone talked about in the Eastern Empire? Funny thing is, looking back, I realize I was just fooling myself the whole time. Sure, I'd go on about how everything I did was for the good of His Majesty, but let's be real, I was mostly just chasing after my own glory. Now, it's crystal clear how pointless it all was, trying to climb the career ladder like I did. Sure, it's impressive for a guy from a lowly noble background to lead a whole division before hitting 40. Getting handed a barony by marrying into it might sound fancy, but it's nothing compared to being a division commander. Not that I'm trying to justify my behavior, but you can see how it might have gone to my head. And yeah, I do regret it all now. But let me rewind a bit. My journey started with a pretty humiliating exit, thanks to my ex-in-laws. See, I was born into knighthood and all set to marry into this high-ranking baron family. Everything seemed fine and dandy until, lo and behold, I discovered my wife was cheating on me. Thought she was the most amazing woman alive, and I was on cloud 9. Turns out, she was just playing me for a fool. Fast forward a year, and my father-in-law kicks the bucket, and suddenly I'm out on my ear. I can still picture it, the way she looked at me when she delivered the knockout blow.
Wasn't it a nice little fantasy for you? A poor knight getting to pretend he's nobility. Well, fantasy's over now. My father may have forced me to marry you, but I'm free at last. And guess what? It's your fault. Couldn't even give me a kid.
I was livid, but I was also clueless. It wasn't until she handed me a vial that I realized she'd been drugging me the whole time. I could have tried to fight back legally, but going up against a baron and his crew? Forget it. Plus, my ex had already moved on to some rich merchant guy, who made sure everyone was talking trash about me. It was a mess, all of it. But hey, that's life, right? Well, here's how it all went down. The merchant scored himself a fancy noble title, and my ex? Well, she was living the high life, basking in luxury. Funny thing is, my father-in-law used to go on about how important it was for nobles to hold their heads high, even when times were tough. Guess he didn't follow his own advice too closely. But hey, that's all ancient history now. Back then, it never even crossed my mind to speak up to the main family, who treated me like one of their own. See, I lost my parents in a tragic accident when I was young, so I didn't have anyone to back me up. So, yeah, it was pretty much inevitable that the Baron would eventually kick me to the curb. Looking back, I realize I drew a lot of motivation from the whole mess. The betrayal by the woman I loved fueled this fire of anger and resentment that just kept pushing me forward. I was hell-bent on climbing the ladder and getting back at them, you know? I was young and full of that kind of energy. I got pretty good at playing the game, taking risks and pulling off some shady stuff. I had a knack for undercover work and even did some money laundering on the side, greasing palms and building connections in the nobility. All that hustle paid off, and by my mid-20s, I'd worked my way up to being a field officer. Starting from the bottom as a warrant officer thanks to my education at the Knight Academy, I moved up the ranks faster than most. It's amazing what a bit of power can do in this empire. At the same time, I was building up my own crew in the military, trying to cement my influence. That's when I crossed paths with Minutes, a noble guy who had a strange passion for battle. Most high-born folks prefer the cozy life, but not him. Anyway, Minutes had talent, so I put him to work. I didn't really care if he liked me or not, I just needed his skills. And weirdly enough, he was totally on board with everything I asked him to do. He followed my lead without question, which was a bit surprising, but hey, I wasn't complaining. You know, it's funny how things work out. Turns out, he was playing me just as much as I was playing him all along, so I guess you could say we were even. We had similar goals, which made us a good match, but there was also this level of trust between us. I was always on the lookout for new opportunities to climb the ladder, and Minutes, well, he was always up for a good fight. I knew he'd follow my lead no matter what, as long as it meant he could keep getting in on the action alongside me. Plus, with no family to worry about, I could afford to take risks without worrying about the consequences. But then things got a bit complicated when Kansas entered the picture. Sure, he had a bit of a reputation for causing trouble in the army, but I didn't care about that. What mattered to me was how useful he could be, and he didn't disappoint. It seemed like he saw me in the same light, probably because I was always game for any military operation thrown my way. Despite his knack for stirring up trouble and going rogue on the battlefield, he proved to be an invaluable asset under my command. Both Minutes and Kansas became essential players in my game of ambition. I'd come up with these risky missions, and they'd execute them without a second thought. This partnership paid off big time, propelling us to the top ranks of the military where nobody dared to question our methods. As I climbed the ranks into my early 30s, my days on the front lines became fewer and farther between. That was mostly thanks to losing sight in my left eye from a poisoning attempt in my younger days. But even with that setback, I wasn't any less powerful. Thanks to some fancy new technology, I had a state-of-the-art artificial eye hidden under my eye patch, which I figured would throw off my enemies. Surprisingly, age seemed to only make me stronger. Despite looking my age on the outside, inside, I felt like I was bursting with energy, like I was in the prime of my life. Dueling for rank held its appeal, but my focus was on leading the military. I could sense that a commander rank was within reach, and I knew that would give me more power than even the Imperial Knights who served directly under His Majesty. And so, I kept on with my efforts to solidify my faction, tapping into the sway of respected figures like Old Man Gadra to fortify the Armored Corps steadily. At the same time, I orchestrated financial backing from my connections in the merchant world to modernize our operations. With each move, I meticulously crafted a record of accomplishments that eventually led to my appointment as one of the Empire's 3 generals of the Guardians, just a bit into my mid-30s. Life seemed to be rolling along smoothly, but amid my duties, I couldn't shake off some introspection. I found myself wondering about the baronial family who'd shown me the door. Upon digging a bit, though, I was hit with a wave of unease. While I wasn't directly to blame, it dawned on me that my rise in authority inadvertently stirred up some activity within the military ranks, which then spilled over into our business dealings. Phrases like, "Don't tell me you're still doing business with the folks who wronged our commander," were subtly passed along to our associates, nudging them to fall in line with my interests. Given my trajectory towards higher ranks in the military, it was pretty much a given that they'd comply. On top of that, unlike in the Western regions, the imperial economy had its own set of rules that made free trade pretty much impossible. Merchant activities were mainly reserved for nobles or the military, with nobles having the power to appoint merchants to handle their business affairs. So, it made sense why someone like the guy who stole my wife would be so keen on getting a noble title. It gave him the legitimacy to carry on with his merchant dealings under the guise of noble patronage, setting up advantageous marriages for his kids and opening doors for his own business ventures, a scheme that was pretty common in the imperial society. So, while that merchant-turned-baron was busy basking in his newfound status, he didn't see my ascent in the military coming. The guy who he'd once laughed off as he kicked out the door was now a high-ranking general, much to his surprise. With the military's hefty budget, there were plenty of lucrative opportunities, and influential officers like me had a say in who got what, which essentially reshaped the commercial landscape in our favor. You know, being one of those 3 generals of the Guardians really gave me some clout. Sure, I didn't have my hands on the whole budget, but my influence was up there with the big shots, like a noble earl or maybe even higher. That poor baron didn't stand a chance against that kind of power, so naturally, all his military connections went down the drain. Finding out about all this left me feeling kind of empty. I mean, I'd been itching for some payback, but now it seemed like I'd gotten what I wanted without lifting a finger. Still, I wasn't about to let up. Been burned once, you know? Can't afford to show any weakness, otherwise, everyone starts taking advantage. My rise to the rank of general had a lot to do with not having any kids. You see, in the military, retire as a big shot like me, and they practically hand you a noble title. The more you've done, the fancier the title. But hey, I didn't have any heirs and wasn't planning on having any, so even if I got the fanciest title in the book, it wouldn't carry on after me. No threat to the bigwigs. The military was dead set against nobles building their own private armies, and the nobles weren't too keen on military folks getting rich either. They liked to keep things separate, you know? Mixing the two was a big no-no. That's why a lot of top brass like me stayed single. Let us throw ourselves into the fray without worrying about leaving widows or orphans behind. But it also meant we were in a constant tug of war with the nobles. Then it hit me. That baron who did me wrong might have taken a hit, but he was still kickin'. And you know why? 'Cause he's a noble. Even a low-level one like him gets a nice paycheck from the Empire. Take that away, and he's toast. But it wasn't just him I had my sights on. There were others in the mix, like my ex's new hubby's merchant dad and the earl who hired him. Their presence just made everything more complicated. So, my determination to wipe out the opposition got stronger. Had to, or else they'd come back to bite me. Thing is, taking down an Earl requires more firepower than I had at the time. That's when I decided to aim even higher, set my sights on building a force that could take on anyone, anywhere.
After going through all that, I was kind of in a fog, you know? I understood the murky depths I was wading into, but I was strangely oblivious to them.
Yeah, you weren't exactly a picture of innocence back then.
You could have easily washed your hands of me then. You'd be the one wearing the general's insignia now, not me.
Military affairs never really interested me, and I never held any grudges against you. Same goes for Kansas. Whether I'm playing the hero or the villain, I prefer dealing with folks I actually like.
Ha, you've always had your idiosyncrasies.
I'm well aware. No need for you to remind me.
Sharing a laugh, Calgurio, the lean officer in his 40s, and Minutes, dressed in a freshly tailored suit, found themselves in the Elf Club, a covert spot nestled within the labyrinth. Here, amid a selection of drinks, they reminisced about past escapades. Usually, access to the club was reserved for a chosen few, requiring strict security measures and a hefty fee. But after the recent Tempest Empire Summit, higher-ups in the Imperial ranks were given entry, a gesture promoted by Rimuru to foster reconciliation and future collaboration.
Ah, yes, and then came my grand ambitions of world domination. But as fate would have it, we were quickly outmatched by this nation, and here I am.
Saying outmatched makes it sound like a schoolyard scuffle. Let's face it, we didn't even put up a decent fight.
Can't argue with that.
Still, I'm grateful for the experience. It shattered the illusion that Emperor Rudra and the Marshal or Lady Velgrind were untouchable.
I fail to see how that's cause for celebration, but if it works for you, then I'm happy.
That's it for this video, guys. Thank you for always watching my videos and supporting my channel. A big thanks to the AnimeKouhai patrons who made this video possible. Havox, Speed Saber, Curtis Loban, Kamal Luke, Mr. Santo, Steven, Moves Jodiri, Spencer Candila, Ian Sikibyol, Patat, Thanakorn Lisawat, Gobby Lin, Charles Bailey. Thank you so much for helping out. I'll see you guys in the next video.